This past week, the entire world was watching the Republican National Convention in Cleveland very closely, where the controversial candidate Donald Trump received his official nomination. Here in the Middle East, most seem to be familiar with the Clinton-Kaine agenda, while Trump's plans for the region seem to be a mystery. ILTV's Steve Leibowitz sat down with Middle East expert Jonathan Spire to hear about what Middle Eastern leaders think about the presidential candidates.
Well, I think that, for everybody, the issue is if Donald Trump obviously is going to be the Republican candidate, nobody really knows what a Trump Middle East policy would look like. Nobody really knows what he wants. On the one hand, he makes noises about isolationism and about, non-interference in the Middle East. On the other hand, he also professes to wish to pursue a very, very determined war against terror and against an uncompromising war against ISIS. So what does that actually mean? Nobody really knows. So my sense is that most of the traditional allies of the United States in the region, I would say Israel included among them, would certainly not be unhappy if it were to be the case that Hillary Clinton would be elected president in November, because Hillary Clinton is seen as, a known quantity. She's been around for a long time. She was Secretary of State. She's generally seen, I think certainly in Israel, as representing obviously a much less left-wing end of the Democratic Party than President Obama came from, and therefore an element of the Democratic Party which is more sympathetic to Israel, a more traditional approach to Israel. So I think Israel certainly would feel quite safe and happy with Hillary Clinton. With Trump, nobody really knows, so nobody is able to have a sense because it's just not clear.
You're very much of an expert on Syrian affairs. How do you think the Syrian rebels would like to vote, or would like to see?
Well, yeah, I think that the rebels, would want. I mean, if they are indeed thinking closely about this, it's not that I've spoken to them about this, but it would make sense for them, I think, to be wanting a Clinton victory for the following reason: we know that Clinton in 2012. We now know, was advocating a much more active policy with regard to support for the Syrian rebellion, together with then CIA Chief David Petraeus, and that was not implemented because of the objection of the president himself and others close around him. So there's a sense that, Hillary Clinton was somebody who wanted a stronger policy, who maybe was not pleased with the failure of President Obama to act on his red line with regard to chemical weapons use by the regime in 2013. So I think, the rebels will be thinking about that if Hillary Clinton comes in, we could well be seeing perhaps a somewhat more proactive policy in Syria with regard to the American position. Whereas with Donald Trump, the general sense, once again, is that of a certain isolationism, a sense of like, well, America's not going to be getting involved in foreign quarrels and not going to be wasting its time, getting deeply involved in Middle East affairs. So that's the way I would tend to see it.
The Assad government, I would imagine, would also look at a Trump victory as perhaps an opportunity for them to perhaps return to chemical weapons, perhaps do things, because they know that Trump maybe tends towards isolationism, and he wouldn't really take a position one way or another. It wouldn't stop them. I
think that's probably right. Yeah, I think Assad, has everything to play for right now in a certain sense, because of the Russian intervention. After September 30th of last year, he's very much consolidated his position and is now to some degree kind of pushing forward against the rebellion. So yes, I think that Assad would not want a situation where a figure like Hillary Clinton, who in the past has been in favour on the record of greater American engagement on behalf of the rebellion in Syria, were to become president. I don't think he would want that.
So the moderate allies, if you will, let's say Israel and Jordan, Egypt, Saudi Arabia, I think they could be grouped together in a way. They might tend to support Clinton because it's the president or the direction that they know as opposed to the direction that they can't predict.
I think that's right, yeah. But of course everybody will be very clear about not making partisan statements or coming out on this side or that side, because who knows who's going to be elected. And I think nobody is worried particularly in the region about the possibility of a Trump victory. I know in the United States there's a lot of sort of concern in a certain sense.
They're not concerned.
I think they're concerned. I mean, I think the assumption will be that Trump will, in any case, he won't be able to do whatever he comes to his mind. But certainly, his views are on the Middle East, at least, not strange or not sort of so far out of the box.
He actually opposed the war in Iraq.
Opposed the war in Iraq. He's in favor of a stronger a war against ISIS. You know, he's deeply concerned about Islamist terror. This is something which he absolutely has been on the record about and very clear about. And these are all sentiments which I think, you know, people in the capitals of the moderate or pragmatic countries of the region that you correctly listed can identify with. So I don't think anybody regards it as being a contest between, you know, somebody they very much want and somebody who would represent disaster. That's not the way Middle Eastern elites are looking at this contest, I don't think.
Dr. Jonathan Spyer, thanks so much for being with us at ILTV.
Thanks, Steve.